Hello. Welcome to American Composers Orchestra's latest virtual event, Composer to Composer Talks, where we feature major American composers in conversation with each other about their work and leading a creative life. My name is Toyin Spellman Diaz, and I have a day job. That's with Imani Winds. I am the oboist of Imani Winds. But today I am honored to speak to you in my brand new position as a member of the board of ACO. What we are about to see and listen to is something that the American Composers Orchestra does really, really well. They highlight the notion that cross-cultural conversations have endless possibilities for bringing positive change to the world. On behalf of the organization, I would like to offer a brief but heartfelt thank you to the amazing composers Chen, Zhou, and Kerwin Young. Listening in on your conversation is going to be a super duper treat for us all. Other necessary gratitude must be sounded for the ACO staff for their tireless, ridiculous flexibility in these crazy times. Thank you for that. To Jensen Artist and Christina Jensen for producing this series, and for the oral history of American music at Yale University for archiving these events. So people, especially students, will be able to hear this conversation for years to come. Finally, I would like to introduce a friend, a gentleman, a scholar, a hip-hopper, non-stopper, bebopper, a wonderful man who will host the conversation for today, Artistic Director of the American Composers Orchestra, Mr. Derek Bermel.
So great to see you, Toyin. Thank you so much for that. I don't think I've ever had quite an introduction like that.
That was the goal, so you're welcome.
Goal achieved. Thanks for joining us. And thank all of you out there for joining us too. This is a very, very exciting conversation. I'm so excited for this. And I want you all to know that during the conversation, you can type in your thoughts into the comments bar there. So please, as you're listening, also be thinking and engaging with us and sending us your thoughts and comments. So now let's bring on our honored guests. We've got two of America's truly great living composers. Of course, we have lots of living composers, we have lots of dead composers, but we prefer them when they're living because then we can get them and talk to them and find out why and how they do what they do. And those two who are with us today, happily married couple, Chen and Zhou Long. And I believe they're both joining us from Kansas City, where they are both esteemed professors. Is that correct?
Yes.
Hello.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. And to interview them, we have a composer of also great esteem and many hats, and that's Kerwin Young. And Kerwin Young, and hats and headphones, I should say. Kerwin Young has also had a long storied history, also working with some of the greats in pop music, and I believe he is actually a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I don't want to go through the entire list of the litany of works that Chen and Zhou Long have written over the years, which is many and manifold. They've had commissions from all over the world, from the US to New Zealand and all countries in between. But I will say that today we're going to be focusing on their work, Humen 1839, which is a tribute work, and you'll learn more about it through Kerwin, who worked with them and has got a lot of questions for them, which he'll be asking them today. But I would like to just encourage everybody to engage with us in the comments. If you look at your screen, you'll see where it says comments, and please let us know what you're thinking during this time. So I'll let Kerwin take it from here.
Well, yeah, thank you so much. Honor and a pleasure to be here with my teachers, Chen and Zhou Long, and to discuss Symphony Human, 1839. Should I begin with the first question?
Well, we could even start. I think listening. Why don't we let people hear a little bit? Let them hear the excerpt, which is maybe you could tell us exactly where it's from.
Yes, this is from the second movement, the first listening example. I think also from the second movement, measures 214 to 286. I feel that it embodies much of the essence of the piece, and that's why I chose it to be the first selection.
Great. So we'll hear that now. Wow, that's such a beautiful, haunting excerpt. Kerwin, I wanted to just say before we get into the piece, maybe we can all just find out how you all know each other, because there's really a history there.
Well, in 2008, I contacted Chen on MySpace. I was interested in polishing up on my orchestration comprehension, not necessarily studying composition as a full-time student. And Chen responded, got me in touch with James Mobley at UMKC. I went out, had a meeting, and took some of my scores. And upon departing, I made a decision that I would enroll as a full-time student to study composition.
Yes, Darren, I'm happy that you asked this question, because we are all related to ACO, because of my colleagues, James Mobley and Paul Rudy. They have both are related to ACO. And also when Donnell Fox introduced me to MySpace, I started to use that, and Kerwin cut me from MySpace. That's why we brought him to UMKC. And he has earned 2 degrees from our composition program.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So.
Wow, MySpace, you're really taking me back now.
Yeah.
Because, Facebook seems old school now, but MySpace, that's really, that's bringing me back to a different era. Wow. And so you all have an association with ACO, of course, because Chen Yi, your work has been performed by ACO. You were commissioned, and Zhou Long, we recently performed a work the past few years with ACO. Which work was that we did?
Bell and Drum Tower. That is the newer piece for large ensemble. And my piece was Second Symphony, done in 1995 conducted by maestro Dennis Russell Davis, who is one of the founders of ACO, and because he had committed piano concerto before.
Now I know Dr. Zhou is a man of few words, but you're also muted, so you're even fewer words right now.
Yeah, his voice was muted.
Yeah. I remember at how the Kerwin for the first semester, and Kerwin really interested in orchestra writing. So mainly, he's a lot of orchestra works, symphony number.
Now
Symphony number 8, right? Symphony number 8. Yeah, we're going to hear a little bit more from Kerwin Young, but
yeah. ACO's founder and music director Dennis Ross Davis commissioned poems from Tang for the band for the Brooklyn Philharmonic and the Kronos Quartet in 1995. Of course, I'm a longtime friend with Bitzer, and of course Dorit, now artistic director. Yeah, and but until 2013, like after most the Chinese composer performed with ACO, and 2013, eventually I have the large ensemble piece performed at Zango Hall. Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah, I got a pretty good notes from the New York Times. It's excellent interpretation. Yeah, by the ACO. It's kind of a chamber orchestra.
We are fans of ACO's programming. We have gone to all concerts as we could.
Almost 20, 30 years we just go. Whether I'm in New York, I had to go every time.
Yeah, ACO has supported our UMKC composers so much through all these reading sections and programming. And also we participated in the Latino festival, and also for all these year-shot program and reading programs from year to year. Thank you.
And in fact, Kerwin was part of that. Kerwin, you were with the Detroit Symphony.
Yes.
And we're going to hear a little bit from that piece later. But what was that experience like for you?
I mean, it was amazing to hear my orchestral, works performed in full, a complete piece, performed in. Then they actually receive a recording. I took part in the reading with the Kansas City Symphony while at UMKC, but couldn't get a recording. So having this opportunity allowed me to have a recording that I can use for promoting my works to try to, get more performances.
Yeah, we feel so proud of it for you, Kerwin, because when ACO put you up to the earshot program played by Detroit Symphony, such a great orchestra, we feel so happy for you.
Thank you.
Kerwin, you had some questions for your mentors and colleagues here.
Most definitely. First question, when you were commissioned by the Guangzhou Symphony Orchestra, was it their decision or request that you write a piece pertaining to the Opium War, or was that on from your desire?
Because that was 2009. That was the 170th anniversary for burning the opium in Humen. This is a location. And that was in Canton, Guangdong province. Because Guangzhou Symphony is located in Guangdong province. So this time they came up with this project, which would bring the memory back to the historical story of burning the opium, more than 1,000 tons in southern China, because that officer, Lin Zexu, who is the national hero historically, and he collected all these opiums from merchant, from the business people, and collected them, more than 1,000 tons, and burned them off. That was the event happened in that location. So that's why the county of Humen, they had a joint project with Guangzhou Symphony. And Guangzhou Symphony thought that, maybe it's better to invite a Guangzhou-born composer to compose this symphony. And then they came up to me, and I was one of very few Cantonese composers who are working actively in the war, right? And they cut me. And then I said, in such a short time, it would be hard for me to finish a multi-movement symphony because that project didn't come up to us earlier, right? Mm-hmm. And then I said, my husband could help. This is related to me. And that's why Zhou Long joined the project. So that is a kind of co-composition written by two people. And so I gave the first movement as the introduction because I was born in Guangzhou. Certainly, I know the folk music there really well. And I took several tunes from Cantonese folk music, and including the Summer Thunder. That is a very popular tune, which I use in the opening of the piece. And also raising the dragon bow in the summer. And also there is another praising horses. And those are the very popular folk tunes that everybody can identify if you were born there. So I introduced these materials in the first movement. Although you cannot hear the whole tune from each piece, I also interacted with all these different materials. They are in multi-tonality, so you cannot hear them in pentatonic scale or in any kind of full tune, but it's a mix. And so we use this material in later movements as well. Right. And the rest was written by Zhou Long because he has come up with the full second movement and the full third movement, because when we discuss about the symphony, we thought after the introduction, that would have the very significant indication of the location and the culture and the tradition. And then he got to write the second movement, which is the burning of the oven, the action. And the third movement to describe about the sadness, the sorrowness, all these kind of emotions by the common people who live there. And then the last movement, certainly we will look forward to the future. If we could have a bit better future, to look forward to the peace of later, that would be good for the world. That was the spirit we think about. So if you ask the materials independently for the second and the third movement, Dr. Zhou would tell you about that.
I feel that your manipulation of the folk tunes in the first movement is very mathematical. You know, even throughout the piece where they appear. So I tried to find some type of identity, you know, but how you, like you mentioned, you know, you used it, you distorted it in such a way where it's unrecognizable. I want to ask the two of you, you know, when you, Dr. Chen, after you've written the first movement, did Dr. Zhou, did you then take those ideas and develop them for the second through fourth movement, or did you create new material just based around the concept of the event, the First Opium War, for those three movements?
The second movement and the third movement not really use the Cantonese folk tones, but the last movement we started, you know, we worked together, used some Cantonese tone, reflect or recap the same material for the last energetic fourth movement. The second movement, as you just played, the excerpt is at the end of the second movement, but they started with a very rhythmic. It's kind of in a battle. You know, I was in Humen afterwards, not really. You know, they asked Chen and I both to go back to Humen to make some field work, to look at the museum, and but after the performance, during the rehearsal, they have a van to send me to the Humen. Really, it's located about 50 miles outside of Guangzhou. It's the first time I visited Humen. Look at the museum. Is really a history event. It looks ugly, you know, because after the war, because the burning is triggered the first Opium War. They have the second one, and historically, it's really the Chinese is lost the war, and then they have to, you know, cut their land to the foreign countries. So it's a lot of dead bodies, you know, both sides in the museum. It's not real, but they just build, you know, to remember this event. It's really ugly. So I afterwards I used the material. It's not really related to the Cantonese, but the Guqin music, which I always you know, get into it, the materials from the Guqin, you know, like the opening of the second movement is really from a Guanling side. It's a Guqin ancient piece. The big jumps, you know, the bang 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 bang, you know, there's a lot of jumps. But we don't have Guqin in the orchestra, so I use the timpani. Yeah, it's basically the second movement is a Timpani Concerto. It's a lot of challenge, and during the rehearsal, Yulong, Master Yulong premiered the work. He is also artistic director of the Beijing Music Festival, and also music director of China Philharmonic and Shanghai Symphony and the Guangzhou Symphony. So the Guangzhou Symphony commissioned the work. So during the rehearsal break, he said, you know, you practice. The timpanists just practice during the rehearsal. It's really, really, a lot of meter changes. The meter change gave the some difficulty to the solo timpani part. The third movement is also based on Wuqin music. It's sorrow, and after the battle, and it's a tragical scene. So it's kind of a drama. It's very sad. So I use the Guqin Guanglingshan, also different melody. Da 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 da. What related to the second movement, ending of the second movement. So the second and the third is kind of linked together. Yeah.
Dr. Zhou, I was going to say, Kerwin, you chose some interesting excerpts from the beginning of the first movement and then the beginning of the second movement, which Dr. Zhou was just talking about. So maybe we could hear those excerpts.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first 12 measures. But in those 12 measures, there's so much material there that I felt mathematically. All right, you have a lot of seconds. You have two of the Cantonese folk songs alluded to in those first 12 measures, minus the dragon racing boat is in that. But those first 12 bars pretty much provides a lot of the movement, the type of intervallic relationship found throughout the piece. I feel, because trying to make sense of how each piece relates to each other. That's what I came up with through my analysis, But I know when the third folk tune comes in, dragon, what's racing dragon boat, that you transpose it up a tritone to make it fit. I want to ask you also, what instruments or material did you use to identify the hero Lin Zexu?
That is a kind of abstract, I think. If you talk about the music, besides the folk tunes that we use, I don't think that is a very specific instrument or motivic material has been designed. I thought that is a general mood or emotion, that kind of expression reflected in this each of these four movements, but not a very specific material or element. But I'm glad that, Kerwin, you have analyzed those in detail. You have learned so well from UMKC's theory professors and history professors.
And he's become an expert on Cantonese music.
Right.
He knows all the folk tunes and everything. There's another beginning that you have another excerpt, which is the beginning of second movement, right? That you outlined here.
Listening excerpt one. Well, the first excerpt was like in the middle of two. Yeah, that's an additional one. Yeah, yep. From letter E. This movement 2. Yeah.
I feel like you can write a dissertation on this piece. Let's do the next excerpt.
kahunas. It's a lot of muscle. Yep. You know, you're both of you combine East and West, you know, and the piece itself, it's about a conflict between Western Britain and East China, right? And how you combine, like Dr. Zhou, you mentioned that you, like in this movement, for example, the timpanis playing Chen inspired movements, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just amazing to me how, you know, full circle that you always find a way to combine East and West somehow, you know, either philosophically or even musically, you know, like you take the concept of an instrument and apply it to timpani, right? But you in this piece, you've also taken the subject, the instrumentations. Like I noticed in this piece, you've got, you know, peepaw voicings, you know, and what's your, or what has been your inspiration for this type of decision in your work?
For the whole piece?
Yeah, but just in your work in general, you know, combining East and West, you know, I know from talking to you, but can you share some of that, you know, without?
You know, you could hear the Western orchestra use of the Western orchestra is a kind of a postmodernist. It's not really have the trichord harmony language in it. It's a lot of dissonant chords used, and heavily used the percussion. Of course, this is also, you know, because the scene and this history require some you know dramatic or dramatic effects, you know, to add into the. I think the Western orchestra have this power, but in the traditional Chinese, like a guqin, is kind of a sagacious instrument, you know, self-enjoy, you know, in the chamber. But for the full orchestra, it's a kind of the two really could you know, combine with the ancient materials. That combination will have empowered you know, the dramatic writing on this piece. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you incorporated opera gongs in the symphony?
Opera gongs, yes. Yeah, I loved it. I use a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned the guqin is it's an instrument of the elite, the intelligentsia, right?
Yeah.
And so
very soft instrument. It's softer than guitar.
Yeah. This is it's incredible to hear, you know, this is the only piece that you've collaborated on together, true?
The first one. We recently collaborated again because Chen always drop the ball, you know. So I don't have time, and things like I have to jump in. You know, people often come to her, and but she said no, I can't finish it in such short time, and then I jump in to help. Yeah. So this first ever. That's great.
Wow.
This movement in particular, it has so much muscle. When I heard it, I'm like, wow, man, this could be for an epic film, you know, like if it wasn't for a commission, a symphonic work, this could easily be a theatrical film score, you know. And I wanted to ask the two of you, like, has this work ever been licensed for use in a film?
No. I have been asked this question when Toronto Symphony play my orchestra work. But actually, the characteristics of our composition, in general, if you talk about the language or the style, I thought that we brought in both Western elements and Eastern elements and the media together, because we try to use the Western orchestra to speak as a Chinese instrumental language and use the Chinese instruments to play extended technique, like Western instruments. and so that is a kind of a combination. Actually, when you think of language, we could ask different instruments to speak in different languages. And so maybe that was the result. But for the dramatic part, it's my characteristics. so maybe you may ask if it is moving music. I'm happy if you use that. But not this piece. This piece was commissioned by the Guangzhou Symphony. And so they did a premiere. And then Beijing also, the Beijing Concert Hall Symphony, also they did that in Beijing. And also Qingdao Symphony did that, and Shanghai Philharmonic also did it. So that was the finalist for, what is that called? Nomination for Grammy, played by New Zealand Symphony.
Kerwin, our current student, a lot of students, they come to the composition program and they say, what do you want to learn? We want to learn film score. Sometimes, if the critics said, oh, this music sounds like a soundtrack or something, you feel insulting or in some way, but no more. Right now, if it's oh, yours sounds like a film score, so probably we're happy to hear this.
Last time recently is an orchestra now. They played it in Lincoln Center by Bar College, conducted by Jin Dongcai. That was 2 years ago.
They performed many times, but before the 2016 Grammy nominee, the conductor was in New Zealand Symphony Orchestra, Daryl Young, is a Singaporean conductor. Asked me to, Zhou Long, whatever you have something left over, not recorded. I said I do have some, and then I gave to him my Humen Symphony and other pieces into one CD recorded by on the Naxos by the New Zealand Symphony, and then I don't know why they put on the Grammy and nominated.
Wow.
This is only thing published, and the score I submitted to my publisher, OUP, Oxford University Press. Is a little sensitive. They reject it, and eventually Pressure took it.
Yeah, Theodore Pressure is my publisher, so Pressure takes care of this piece.
This Chinese name is a beard on it, so that's okay.
Kerwin, I think you had another excerpt, which was from the fourth movement.
Yeah. Yep. Movement 4. Opening of it.
Is there anything to listen to here in particular?
In this example, there's the cymbals, I believe, and there was some questions I wanted to have asked, but they answered them. So what this movement depicts is it's the combination, the different devices used in the piece. You'll hear what Dr. Zhou and Dr. Chen mentioned.
And you mentioned also the fourth movement, a lot of melodic lines, right? Taken from the materials introduced in the first movement. And so if you got all these excerpts, fragments, you could tell that this is my work. I put them all into the fourth movement to review the whole piece.
So let's hear it now. Let's hear the, is this right at the beginning of the fourth movement?
Yes, it is. I split the fourth movement up in two excerpts. This first half is really percussive. I just want to ask, is Dr. Zhou, this is your hand?
Mostly. Well, Chen Yi not that great. I started with the whole structure, but we argued about the material because even basically I don't want to go back to the Cantonese tone here, but eventually we did, as the low instruments gave the very bold the Cantonese tone there. But the opening is really based on the drum set. It's a Chinese drum set, called Paigu. Paigu is kind of a Chinese tom-tom with dagu, the bass drum. They started with the Western bass drum, but I said, well, no, to find the Chinese bass drum, the big one, and also the Paigu. For the Western orchestra percussion players, they don't really get into it. And then also during the rehearsal, different room, the conductor, you don't send the girl to the different room to practice 20 minutes, come back, you have to get everything. The girls get really nervous, and afterwards it's perfectly played. But this one is not really Chinese orchestra. This one, you heard it from Naxos, right? That's New Zealand. I even wasn't there. But the percussion principal sent a lot of emails questioning about the percussion section. I just explained, what kind of shape and how the sounding should be for the drama and the gongs. And they did a pretty good job, I think.
Yeah. It because you mentioned dagu and paigu, right?
Mm-hmm.
The dagu, to me, it sounds somewhat similar to the taiko.
Not really. I experienced and check out with the both. The taiko, the tone is pretty high.
Okay.
You know why? Because the taiko, they use a very thick leather, very thick membrane. So no matter how big the sound, the tone is pretty high. But the dagu will have the membranes thin, very big, but with thin membranes. The leather membrane give a very deep vibration. That's different. Yeah.
Also, dagu has the edge, which is made from wood. It's a wooden edge that we play out with a wood block sound.
Yeah, dagu and the taiko looks the same. They have all have the wooden edges. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to play the other half of this movement now, Derek. Nice.
Mhm.
I don't know where to begin with this one. It's both of you there. So I mean, how did you divide this up with the the fourth movement up?
It was a discussion when we accepted the commission. We thought of four movements with different moods and titles first. And then we decided how to split the job. So that's why I did the first movement, and then when we have the recap in the fourth movement, I got to put the materials back to the structure. When Zhou Long did the second and the third alone, because he did those independently at the same time. Because he didn't take the Cantonese tunes to his movements. But the moods and the titles are designed already before we started to work. And also when you have a distinguished contrast between four movements, and so it was very clear when you work with the images differently. So that would be easier for us to work together. Otherwise, usually we did everything independently with our own relation, or unless after he wrote one song or one movement of his Madame White Snake, I would be brought in to listen to it, and then I yell, I said, you got to fix this chord like this. Or he would listen to look at my flute concerto and said that this section is definitely not long enough, yelling at me. And those are the moments that we would call work together. Those are independent works, but this work was the first time we worked together to split the jobs among these four movements.
Yeah, I have to tell you that while I was at UMKC, I never heard this piece. I think when I got there, it may have already premiered, prior to me starting that semester, and so I went 7-8 years never hearing this one. I've heard all your work, so this was just a new dimension for me to experience your work, and it's been great,
One of the things we're trying to do with the composer talks is to hear this kind of interaction, because it's so great to hear someone like Kerwin. You know their work very well. They know your work, and you're learning about new works that you've all done together and separately. So just in case you tuned in a little bit late, we're talking with Chen and Zhou Long, who are joining us from University of Missouri, Kansas City, where they're both professors. And we have Kerwin Young, who's his own kind of professor, doing all kinds of incredible work in multiple genres, who studied with them for years. And Kerwin, we're going to just switch over for a second to your work and talk about American Caravan, which was a piece that you had read at the Detroit Symphony readings through ACO's Earshot program. And it was just a beautiful work. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your experience there and the work itself. And we're about to hear two different excerpts from it. So I think the first one's a little slower. Second one heats up a bit. Maybe you can tell us about that.
Yeah, the piece itself is about the migration of people from Central and South America coming to the U.S. and being turned around at the border. So that's the Caravan. But I think, anytime I can have an orchestral work read or performed, it's an honor. And so having the opportunity with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra through ACO to Earshot to read this work was a great opportunity, so.
Well, you want to let's listen to this first excerpt, and maybe, I don't know if there's anything you want to tell us about it. Or
I mean, it's recent history. It's like current events. What the last year it was, or a year or 2 years ago. It's still happening. We just don't see it on the news.
All right, well, let's get right to it, and we're going to hear this first excerpt from American Caravan. Wow, I mean, incredible build there. Very lyrical. I can hear the lyricism coming across from Chen Yi and Zhou Long right to you. So,
Well, it's covering all. It's covering all own language and own, very emotional.
Yeah. Dr. Joe always told me, I used to always ask him, how did you get this sound? How did you come up with that? And he told me in his office, he said, come up with your own sound. It's there. You just find it. Have your own sound, your own voice. And so,
yeah.
Oh, it really, and when I was hearing when I was listening to Human, I was thinking about Dr. Zhou's work with music from China, because of course I knew about your work from your incredible percussion writing of the Chinese percussion. So I studied that over the years, and obviously Kerwin has too. Well, anyway, I wanted to give a shout out to our audience, who's all over the place, everywhere from South Korea to Kalamazoo, Queens, Brooklyn, right here, La Mesa, all over the place, California, Oregon. Thank you all for tuning in, and please write any questions you have either for Chen Yi and Zhou Long about their work, or Kerwin Young. And we're going to hear the second excerpt from your piece, American Caravan. This is a little later in the piece. Is there anything you want folks to know about this section, which is played by the Detroit Symphony?
No, not that particular. No, it's more percussive, upbeat.
Right. Okay. So we're cranking it up a notch here. Okay. Let's hear it.
Great.
You really show the contrast between movements and sections. Yeah. Also, the orchestra performance was very good. It's a reading section by the earshot program under the ACO's right earshot program.
Yeah.
Detroit Symphony.
Yes, and you know, one of the things about Kerwin's music that I find so intriguing is, I mean, he's not only got this 8 symphonies and a whole bunch of and dance and music for dance, but also all his incredible work that he's done. I thought I had interesting collaborators, but he's worked with everybody from you know, Roy Haynes to Eric B. and Rakim, some of my heroes. So so just an incredible breadth of knowledge about different styles and different kinds of music. So that really comes across in this piece. And also the dramatic flair that he probably inherited somewhat from working with you two for orchestra, you know, which we can hear in the music. I wanted to ask, you know, all of you in whichever order, is there anything that you would like to tell us about making music during this particular time? Because it's such a weird time for all of us who are musicians and all of us who are appreciating music, making music. Is there anything that keeps you going during this time? Is there anything you're thinking about as you're writing?
Because we both, besides composing, we teach, right? So we got to work harder, because I would tell my students that different time and different situation, you might have to work harder, and then you could get something from this situation. Although our classes are still busy, I would advise them, if not the huge orchestra works yet, you may write for smaller instrumentation in order to get all experience, right? And then later, when you collect them, combine them, it would become more mature orchestra rating from all this basic training for writing for smaller ensembles. And also for me, I thought that it's a very important time for us to support each other. Because when I saw ACO's program, I thought that you are so supportive. You have the most diverse programming. You have supported so many living composers in the country, and with a rich repertoire. And also you open up different instrumentation for opportunities. I thought that those are the things we should be doing. To support each other is very important, because after the pandemic, all the concert opportunities would come back. By then, you would have a larger repertoire. Also, you have a deeper subject and emotion, and like this kind of expression to speak out. I think from the humanity point, like as a human being, we would have this kind of compression with this kind of thought, just to support the society. That is very important for us to move forward, because you look forward to the future. There is the light. You have to move forward. We got to work harder.
Yeah, I think the ACO composer to composer program is really there's a lot of possibilities, and give people connections worldwide. This is very important at this difficult time, and give us, you know, a lot of encouragement, and to be more flexible. Writing small pieces is still could work, but prepared, you know, after the past, the pandemic, the things will getting much better and better. Hope.
I think that the diversity of the programming is very important too. And also when you have this citywide music festival, you organize all different locations, venues, to present different programs with different instrumentation. Those are the things that I will feel that is to support each other, to let the arts and creations grow. Not to be stuck if it's something difficult, and we should learn how to overcome the hardship, because we are human beings. We have this spirit and the ability towards the future. So that is what we are living for the society, for the future. So that is important for us. Our students are working very hard. None of them stop in the middle. And so they even work harder in their academic works and creations. And also some of them created this programming with virtual performances, right? And that is a new aspect for us to develop as well. So a lot of orchestras would have put on all these virtual concerts in different locations as well. Also with different communities. Now you could reach out. Maybe they are in different formats or different timing of concerts, but we keep music going. Is alive for human beings, for the society. That's I thought very important. And Kerwin is very busy. He works like a lecturing in North Carolina University, and he gives lectures, workshops in copyright laws, and he would give more lectures in different locations, right? And are you doing this online or in person?
Yeah, it's online. Music production I lecture in, and music publishing, copyrights, but it's seasonal for that. That's mostly in the summer.
Oh.
And scattered here and there. I may do a 1 day a month thing.
Yeah. Kerwin, is there anything you've for inspiration that you've gone to during this pandemic, during this time? Did you go back to the Rockaways?
No.
What do you do?
No, Rockaways is Russian owned now, right? Man, I wish I were living there now. But for inspiration, I find that online collaborations, virtual collaborations is something prosperous for all composers, because it expands our connections, and then also any software programs that you've been wanting to learn. Like for me, Dorico, I switched from Sibelius to Dorico. So it's got more capabilities, and I've got my hands around New Window, which is another Steinberg program. So just stay forward thinking with the technology, with the software programs, and networking through online virtual collaborations, and continue to find any opportunities as a composer, whether it's a commission, a granting commission, a film scoring opportunity, like a workshop. I recently did the BMI Scoring for the Screen workshop. Also, it's just continue to network and find opportunities to stay busy.
Wow.
Because,
well, you give me new meaning to, and you don't stop.
Don't stop. Like
you don't stop.
And
your mom just weighed in, by the way. So that's good news too. I think my mom is watching, but she's too shy to write. I want to thank so many people for this. Besides you three, I want to thank Toyin Spellman Diaz for coming and introducing. I want to thank OHAM at Yale University, the Oral History of American Music, the Archives, and Libby Van Cleve. I want to thank so much our staff here at ACO and Jensen Artists who've done so much work to put this together. Thanks to Jade, especially, who's a student also of Chen Yi and Zhou Long. I think you can hear in the background that the cops are coming to get me in Brooklyn, so I better get going. But I do want to just tell you that next time we are going to have a composer-to-composer talk that's going to feature Gabriela Lena Frank, who's going to be interviewing my old professor, William Bolcom, someone very close to my heart. And they're both great friends of ACO, and they're going to be discussing Bill Bolcom's Ninth Symphony. And so I really hope that you can join us on January 13. That's the day. Thank you so much, Kerwin Young. Thank you so much, Chen Yi and Zhou Long, for being here and sharing your wisdom and your music with us. We really appreciate it. And this is going to be rebroadcast, so you can go to the ACO website, americancomposers.org, and find out more information about these broadcasts, and you can hear the last one, the future ones, by going there. So thank you so much, and thanks to our interim director, Lindsay Working, who is taking some time off now to have a baby, which we are very excited about, and thanks to the staff. Thank you all for tuning in, and see you very soon. See you on January 13th.
Thank you, Derek and ACO.
Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, thanks, Derek.
Bye.
1,000 years.